I'm just warning you, if I slur any of my words a little bit, Cal, today, it's because I've just got home from the dentist after
Oh, okay.
a bit of a tooth fell out, which was quite stressful.
I can
But the
imagine.
dentist has fixed it, so it's okay. But I've had an awful lot of
Beautiful. Doesn't look swollen, so you look like you're good to go.
it was not only like this.
We-
It's just because of
I'm going to need a
the
hand today. There's so much going on. I'm going to need a hand, so
Okay, I'm here. I'm gonna tough it out. I'm gonna tough it out. I
beautiful.
just might sound a bit weird. Okay, let's do it. Let's get on with the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Timed Out for Sporting News. I'm here with Callum Ferguson. As always, Callum Ferguson, who is the man, let's just say it now, was right all along, never lost faith that Australia were going to win the T20 World Cup, and you were right. Handing it straight to you, Callum.
Yeah, look, I won't say that I said they'd win it from the first game of the tournament or before the tournament, but I was certainly bullish about them making the semi-finals, and then from there it was anyone's tournament to win. But once they made the semis, I just grew in confidence and just felt like they were going to steamroll their way to the World Cup. And look what happened. I mean, they had a little bit of luck, didn't they? They won the toss, in a final in Dubai. That certainly gives you a bit of a leg up, no doubt about it. But the way they went about it was just outstanding, and they were very deserving winners in the end, weren't they?
In the end, they certainly were. And for any of you who are joining us live, I can see some people on there already. Please do feel free to drop us a question or a comment in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get to them. So hello to Fahim Rahman and to Triun Phone, who says, awesome that you guys are here. Look, Triun, it's awesome that you're here. And Samith Joshi is there. Callum's prediction comes true. Felt bad for Pakistan and Hassan Ali, though. I mean, Hassan Ali, to do what he did after being in hospital. I mean, when you saw those pictures, I'd heard during the match that he'd been unwell, but I didn't know the extent of it. So, wow. Yeah, it's a tough thing, but that Pakistan team, I think, is going to be very exciting for a long time to come, and they'll win lots of stuff. So.
Yeah, look, they're an exciting side, and they're on the rise, no doubt about it. You know, it was really tough on Hassan Ali, dropping that catch late in the game. To see, Rizwan in hospital was really tough.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, no, I thought you did. So, look, to see those pictures and the way he performed throughout the tournament, even though he was clearly suffering, was just exceptional and great leadership. I was really impressed, obviously being over there in Pakistan for the PSL. I thought the way he led from the front over there in the PSL was fantastic, and he did exactly the same in this tournament along with Babar Azam. So it was just a fantastic tournament from Pakistan's point of view, a real eye to the future with them. So many great young guns in that side with huge future. That side's only going one way, and that's up. So it was a brutal way to finish the tournament, but certainly a great tournament from Pakistan cricket team. And it was just a brutal way to go out. But there were some brave performances within that team.
Absolutely, and you did feel. I've said to someone, I've never felt so much like wanting to hug a cricketer as I did Hassan Ali, because. Yeah, look, it can happen. Dropped catches happen.
It can. We've all done it. So it was really tough timing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get on with some of our topics, shall we? First up today, Australia's Ashes squad announced. Yes, the men's Ashes squad has been announced, and there's really no surprises in there, Cal. Did you think? It's all pretty much as per we expected.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Mitchell Marsh was obviously highly speculated about, and look, he's around the mark. So look, it's obviously a big call for for the selectors to bring Mitchell Marsh straight back into that Ashes squad. To see him in the A squad, he's around the mark. So that was that was the one that could have gone either way, and they decided to leave him out of the actual Ashes squad. But he's in the extended A squad, and he'll have a chance in the 3-day internal trial, no doubt, to push his case in case there's an injury or anything of that nature. But certainly the Ashes squad itself, I think, was pretty straight up and down. But certainly exciting to see the Australia A squad announced as well. And a guy that we talked a bit about last week, obviously Henry Hunt, in fantastic form since the start of last season. I think he's scored more hundreds than anyone else. So he's in great form, and great to see his name in there, along with a number of other very impressive players so far in this Sheffield Shield season.
Yeah, Cal Stradamus is what I'm going to call you from now on, in your ability to predict the future, and you did give big raps to Henry Hunt. I guess now the real spot that's just open, it looks like a straight shootout between Travis Head and Usman Khawaja for that middle order batting spot.
Yeah, it does, and both bring different skill sets. I think that certainly Travis is the more dynamic of the two. So if Usman is being seen as the number 5, look, I think I'd go with Travis. He's played 20 odd Test matches or 20 Test matches, I think, averaging near enough 40, 39 point something. Just a fantastic young cricketer with a huge future. I would have liked to have seen Usman at the top of the order. I don't think we'll see that at the start of the series. I feel like the selectors might keep their powder dry. I think they might leave Usman out of the first Test, obviously depending on how this internal trial goes, with an eye to, in 2 or 3 Test matches' time, maybe leaving him in the squad as that flexibility to either, we're having a problem at the top of the order or we're having a problem in the middle of the order, and then bring him in. I would have liked to have seen him go into the first Test as the opener. That's not going to be the case. I'd like to see him actually left out of that first Test match and maybe fill a gap if someone loses form. Yeah,
because we saw last summer, didn't we? It was like that. Instead of Matthew Wade and Travis Head and sort of in and out, and now it looks like, they're sticking with the incumbency, which is why they've gone with Harris and why Travis Head is there. But we might see, oh, there we go, look at that. That was unexpected. There is the squad.
Nice.
We might say that's sort of, you feel there's a little bit there, whether this is Travis Head's real opportunity to nail down that spot, because that's what he wasn't able to do last summer, and then Matthew Wade sort of came in. So it's I think really on Travis Head to actually make that spot his own. But you're right, it's a brilliant option to have on the bench for Australia if that's the way that they go. And great to see Michael Nisa recovered from that hamstring injury as well and be in there. But yes, no real surprises. Sorry, I'll let you do the duck noise now, Muku.
I didn't see the countdown there, so lucky it wasn't my turn to talk.
Fantastic. Okay, looking down, there's I see Martin Lawrence says, Cal and Mel, hello. You were right, Cal. I most certainly didn't see Australia winning the tournament. I thought it was by far the worst format for Australia. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about how they did it, but let's bring up our next topic, shall we? And it is Mighty Marsh's crowning moment. Mitch Marsh, what an amazing final. What an amazing 6 months in particular he's had. It's been fantastic. And to come from someone who just a couple of years ago sort of joked, but there was something underneath that joke, that most of Australia hated him. From being booed at the MCG because Peter Handscomb was dropped for his home Test. It was just awful to see that happen to a young player. So to see him come and do what he did in the final, and throughout the past few months, especially after being dropped for that England thrashing as well, not dropped, but structural restructure, whatever it was. You couldn't be happier for him, could you?
No, I really couldn't. I've been very fortunate to have been around Mitch Marsh Swampy, Marsh and Sean a fair bit over my time in cricket. Played under Swampy with Mitchell at the Pune Warriors a long time ago, and he was an up-and-coming star at 20, 21 years of age. And I think you and I were talking just off air before we started about how he just hasn't changed. He's the same guy that he was at 20, 21, maybe a little bit more mature. We all grow up at some point, but certainly he's the same level-headed, happy-go-lucky character in the dressing room and around the ground, and out in the middle, he's the fiercest competitor that you could imagine. From what I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, he's just developed into a competitive beast, and you saw every bit of that during this World Cup, and he throws everything he's got at the game. I love the grunt that you hear from him as he's swinging the bat. He's throwing everything he can at the ball, and that's intimidating for bowlers. It really is, and I think what was asked of him leading into this T20 World Cup, couple of series to get himself in at that number 3 position, made it his own. Selectors had a little wobble, leaving him out for Ashton Agar early in the tournament. I didn't like it, but they righted the ship pretty quickly and got him back in there. But he's a match winner, and if he brings that to the Australian T20 side for the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to have a lot of success, and they're going to be a real chance coming back here to Australia in the next T20 World Cup. But it was just wonderful to see him out there at the end. All the excitement, all the emotion, all the effort, the adrenaline that went into that innings was really shown when he just collapsed to his knees at the end. I mean, it was all so much, and it was all just such a relief for him when he got over the line with the team. And Glenn Maxwell did it with the reverse hit, the switch hit, which was, I think, a bit of just a message to a few people around. But it was just such a great moment, and to see all that emotion just result in him on his knees out in the ground. It was just a fantastic moment for him, and in some ways redemption, and in some ways just the moment that he really found his way into the hearts of the Australian cricket fans, and I hope he stays there, because he was treated really poorly throughout the first half of his career, and I hope that the second half is everything that he ever wanted it to be, and everything that we always thought that he could be as a cricketer.
So it's funny you use the word grunt, because I wrote a piece, I got quite sentimental and wrote a piece about Mitch Marsh and the final, and I said his batting, there you go, it starts with a bit of Johnny Cash, because cricket should have more Johnny Cash. But I think I described his pull shot as being made up of grunt, what did I say? There was grunt, sweat, and motor oil. Because it's that kind of thing. It's not the, classy finesse or whatever. Not that he can't do it, but he's like a big sort of truck in the way he does it.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you brought that up. But so if you get a chance to check that out on Sporting News, please go ahead and read it, because I like it when people read things that I write, and I wrote it on no sleep as well. So yeah, I'm trying to get back into the normal thing. So I don't know if we missed the countdown or not. Yeah.
Oh, no, just got in there. Well done.
Okay, let's bring up our next topic. Hello, everyone who's still joining us. And just a bit more on Australia, how Australia did it. The thing was for this, one of the reasons that a lot of people did not see them winning early on is that T20 is a modern game. It has just felt like Australia, yes, they were number 1 in the world a couple of years ago, but in that time, it just felt like they weren't the same as other high-performing teams with their T20 specialists, an approach that was dominated by analytics, and a lot of left-hand, right-hand combinations. They only had Warner in the top order as a left-hander for the final. And in the end, they kind of selected just good cricketers who made themselves T20 specialists. Some of them are, but, the likes of Josh Hazlewood, for example. Mm-hmm. So it was a really different approach, I guess it goes to prove that you can still win T20 cricket that way. It doesn't just have to be the other way that is now very, quite formula driven, stats driven, analytics driven. There's still room for another style.
Yeah, there certainly is. And I look back to the two series leading into the tournament that Australia lost, and lost big. And I think that was where everyone jumped off the bandwagon. Whereas if you look at the side that fronted up for game one and then throughout the tournament, it was a significantly different team. They had their first choice players all available, all fit, all in good form. And what they'd also done through that period where they didn't have the frontliners was they were able to give some of the other guys that were going to fit in and around their frontliners that were missing an opportunity to play in some different roles. If I look at Matthew Wade spent some time in the middle order, same with Marcus Stoinis. Now, they don't get a lot of time in the middle order when they're playing for their Big Bash teams. They're at the top of the list and dominating and playing really well. But what they've both done in the past is actually played in the middle order. It's not like they've never played in the middle order, whereas I think in the past, a lot of the selection for the Australian team in must-win series or in tournament format has been they've picked everyone that's been scoring the most runs in the Big Bash, and they've generally been openers or a number 3 maybe, but not very many people that were experienced in the middle order. And that was where they actually went into this tournament. They had 4 guys that had played plenty of cricket recently and in the past, batting in the middle order. Steve Smith, Glenn Maxwell, Marcus Stoinis, even Mitch Marsh, and then Wadey. They've all played a lot of cricket in the middle order at different stages of their careers. So it was a very different selection process and a very different skill set that we saw out in the middle throughout the entirety of the tournament, which actually, it's no surprise to me that they were able to perform so well and outperform what a lot of people thought, because they actually had players in positions that they were suited to and had skill sets that were going to suit them for. So it's no surprise the batters actually were far more consistent than we've seen in T20 cricket. They were able to build momentum throughout the tournament, much like we've seen in successful Australian World Cup winning teams in one-day cricket, where they didn't necessarily get off to a flyer, but they built into the tournament really well and end up standing on the podium with either white jackets in a Champions Trophy win, holding a trophy in World Cup wins. And it just built beautifully. And I feel like there was a lot of faith lost in the side leading into the World Cup on the back of a couple of poor series, but it wasn't the same team. It was a completely different team, which was littered with match winners across the board. And look, I thought they would go deep. They won it. I'm really pumped that I was on their bandwagon from ball one. But if you look far enough back, if you're willing to go back, it was a build that they put into place. The selectors really did it well, I thought. Apart from a little wobble, as I mentioned earlier, where they left Mitch Marsh out of one game, I thought it was a fantastic build starting a few series ago.
And I see Samath Joshi saying, you've got to feel bad for New Zealand and Kane Williamson. Man, yes. Okay, I think we can all feel for them. But in the end, really only Kane Williamson and Trent Boult stood up. The others didn't have their best game when it came to the pressure. But Samath also says, excellent redemption for Dave Warner after how he was treated at Sunrisers Hyderabad in IPL. Form is temporary, class was permanent. That was the other thing going into it too. It wasn't just that they had a different team. They had players who were coming off injury or just hadn't scored many runs. So I think that was all part of it as well. But Warner was brilliant in the end as well.
He was. Yeah, he was. What you can do with players, you can actually derail players if you don't treat them well and you don't, I suppose, select them in the right positions, or if you leave them out, bring them in, leave them out, bring them in. That's one of the other really impressive parts of Mitchell Marsh's tournament, was the fact that he got left out for a game and then came back and just walked straight in as if nothing had happened. Now, as long as, the messaging might have been really good to him, it's literally conditions-based. But I think as we talked about over the last few weeks, it didn't make sense because the conditions suited the extra all-round seamer. But he walked back in and dominated. David Warner was in, out of that Sunrisers team, and it's no real surprise that he never really got going because, he's a guy that is a proven superstar in that tournament, and he would have been thinking, how the hell is this happening to me? And that's where you can derail a player. But he was always in that Australian team, speaking to people within the camp, which was great to hear because really, when it comes to the crunch in big tournaments, he's got a proven record of turning it on and being one of the best players in the tournament, let alone, one of the best players in the Australian team. So he showed that again. It was fantastic to see. New Zealand and Kane Williamson, I think someone asked a question about, it looks like Vasanth Narain has asked a question, how do you prepare a team for the final frontier and how do you, within bilateral series, learn how to win the big games? Well, it's actually really difficult, but, there'll be some must-win games within each of those series, and that's where you get the practice of being up for, a do-or-die clash in the World Cup situation. It's a semi-final or a grand final. They're the games where you've got to be brave and you've got to take the game on and you've got to do everything you can to get ahead of the game and try and knock the opposition off their game. That's what Mitchell Marsh did. He walked out there and just went whack, hit his first ball for 6, and he was off to a flyer, and then put pure power and I think intimidation into the game, and it threw the New Zealanders off, and all of a sudden they weren't the same threat that they had been previously. And New Zealand, probably with the bat, were a little bit timid early. The wicket looked like it was holding a bit in the wicket, but they didn't really do anything that threw or knocked the Australian bowlers off their game. Mitchell Starc wasn't at his best. He probably handed a few boundaries away, but the rest of the bowlers were able to just get into their rhythm without anyone really taking the game to them, apart from Kane Williamson as the innings went on. And I think that's where they might have just missed a trick, the New Zealanders. Yes, they lost the toss. They didn't have the best of the conditions. So they actually needed to pull a rabbit out of the hat early, in my eyes, and really take the game on. They weren't quite able to do that, and the Australians got into the game, and from there, the rest is history.
So you mentioned that because that's one of the things I wrote about. Mitch Marsh, yes, hit his first ball for 6, but then when they brought Jimmy Neesham into the attack, he hit Jimmy Neesham's first ball for 6. And then when Ish Sodhi, when he faced him, first ball the over was a wide, second ball smashed him for 6.
Yeah.
So it was that constant putting bowlers on the defensive from the very first ball. It was amazing. So I think we probably went over on that one. Look, let's just
I definitely did, yeah.
That's okay. We're allowed. It's a World Cup final. Let's bring up our next topic, shall we? And it is strikers on the march. I know that you'll be very happy about this. Yes, in the WBBL, bit of a turnaround. They started well. They started the season well, the strikers, and then they really dropped off. But now they're kind of making a real move up that ladder and really threatening for the semi-finals, Cal.
Yeah, they are. And look, it's not a huge surprise to me. I mean, they did drop down the table a little bit through the middle. They had a bit of an interesting run there where they lost a couple of close ones in rain-affected games with one no result as well. So they lost some momentum there, but when they went down in those rain-affected games, they were in the games. They were close games. They didn't lose any net run rate. So they've made a really good run over the last little bit. They dropped the game against the Scorchers today at Karen Rolton Oval, but they're still a game and a half ahead of the Melbourne Stars, who are in 5th. So, look, I feel like they're going to make the finals, and they're going to be a really hard team to beat because they're going to be so consistent. They're always going to be in the game. They were beaten today by a fantastic innings by Beth Mooney, who's just been fantastic for the last forever, and she's just a great player. And she played really well today and set a total for the Strikers. They weren't quite able to run down, but I think they'll be there right in the mix at the end. They'll want to try and avoid the Scorchers, I think, until the final.
Every team, I think.
So they'll be trying to avoid them before the final. But I am relatively confident that the Strikers will make it through to the final. I just think that some of their wins have been quite destructive recently against the Heat in particular. I think they're in really good form at the moment.
No coincidence too, perhaps, that when they had the great start, Talia McGrath was batting well. We know they've got an incredibly good bowling lineup, and Talia McGrath started really well with the bat, and then she went through a bit of a run where she just wasn't scoring. She was just getting out quite cheaply.
Yeah.
No, not surprisingly, she starts making runs again, and the Strikers start winning again. So I think she's really important to them in a way that perhaps you didn't realise before the season started.
Yeah, I think she announced herself in that Australian series against India. There's no doubt about that. She's certainly taken her game to a new level. Katie Mack's been very consistent at the top of the order, almost playing that Mooney type role of being busy, hitting good cricket shots and taking the innings deep. She's done that in the last 4 or 5 games, and that's allowed the players at the other end to play around her. So, they've found some rhythm now, the Strikers. They've gone down in a tough game today, but again, they had their chances. So it's starting to line up for them. So, look, again, though, the two teams at the top are in damaging form. The Scorchers and the Renegades are going to be tough. But I think when it comes to the crunch, I think the two best teams in the tournament, I think, will be the Scorchers and the Strikers. But, I'm always a chance to be proven wrong. There's no doubt about it.
Hey, Callum Stradamus, or Cal Stradamus, I'm not going to bet against anything you say. I'm also going to bring in a comment from Martin Lawrence, who says, speaking of WBBL, nice work, Mel and Cal on commentary. Different networks.
Thanks, Martin.
Of course, but thank you, Martin. Who knows? One day we might be able to commentate together. That would be quite fun.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
One day.
Well, see, we'll put it out into the universe. And we won't be hearing that on commentary. Okay,
No.
Time for our final topic, which is a very serious one. AZEEM RAFIQ'S testimony over there, the parliamentary hearings in England. It was incredibly tough to watch. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but very emotional. I think the thing that stood out for me, Callum, was that AZEEM RAFIQ, well, his bravery in standing up, and as he says, he wants to be a voice for the voiceless. He doesn't seem to want heads to roll, or he doesn't want to point the finger too much at individuals. He wants to change the system. He wants it to be better. And also I think we have to all take some time to look in the mirror and look at our own organisations that we're part of, our own cricket, whether we're here in Australia or not just in Yorkshire, and just really examine whether, we might have done things in the past that made people feel left out, even if we haven't realised it. And is that system there? Or maybe we turned a blind eye when someone made a joke or made a comment, and we shouldn't have done that. We should have stood up. So brutal stuff, obviously not handled well, and it's ripping the Band-Aid off a pretty ugly wound at the moment in English cricket.
Yeah, it is, and I think you're right. The overarching theme seems to be that he just wants things to change, and he wants, more opportunity for Asian players over in England and worldwide, and more comfort for them within the cricket framework. And certainly some of the stories that he was telling were, they were shattering to hear, and I'd suggest most people would find them quite disturbing and distressing to hear. So, look, you hope that this does force change, and this does, change the course when it comes to these issues, and hopefully I think he's trying to basically say as well that we want these players to feel comfortable from the minute they walk into the game to the minute they retire, and feel like they're a part of the team, and not feel like they're on the outer every time they turn up to a cricket training or a cricket ground. And let's just hope it does create that for the young players around the world of Asian or African American backgrounds, because they have so much to offer. Just like, if we want the game to be as inclusive as possible, and to hear him say that's effectively his objective from what I was listening to when I was listening live last night. That's what he's after, and that's what I think all of us want to see.
Absolutely. And I also really want to give a shout out to George DeBell, who has reported on this and given him a voice, to Yaz from Wisden as well, who did an interview with him that helped to open this up, and Cricket Badger podcast as well. So there's been some great work done by journalists who have helped to give him a voice when he felt that he wasn't being listened to within Yorkshire. So it shows the powerful of the media when you have determined and journalists who are brave and determined to basically hold truth to power. That's what it's about, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we've gone over again, and I know that. So thanks for holding off on the duck, guys.
Yeah, that was an important topic.
It was an important topic and a sensitive topic. Wow, we keep saying it every week, but what a week. It's been huge. It has been.
We've got our body clocks back on track, though. We're getting our sleep again, so
it took me a couple of days.
That's a silver lining.
I'm finally getting there now. The next time that we do this show, I'm going to be in quarantine as well in Brisbane, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah,
so we'll be doing a special quarantine show, so feel free to jump on in and keep me company, because I'm going to be all by my lonesome for 2 whole weeks, locked up. But thanks to all of you for joining us as ever. Please do give us a like, subscribe, go check out the articles that we've got on Sporting News Australia. And thank you for joining me as ever with your wonderful insights, Cal Stradamus. And
it's been a pleasure again.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you predict in the end. But until next time, enjoy the cricket. It's all still going on. There's stuff going on all over the world, and we'll be back to discuss it soon. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye for now.